The story of Max the German Shepherd and the little girl quickly spread beyond the hospital. Nurses, doctors, and police officers shared what they had seen. Soon, reporters arrived to cover the incredible rescue. News channels, social media, and newspapers all began talking about the brave dog who saved a little girl's life. People from the city and even from far away were amazed. Many called Max a true hero. Messages of love and respect poured in from strangers who were touched by the story. Inside the hospital, Max stayed beside the girl as she healed. The doctor said that with rest, care, and physical therapy, she would recover fully. She smiled more each day, and Max's calm presence helped her feel safe. The staff allowed Max to stay in her room. They even brought him treats, food, and a blanket. Some nurses admitted they had never seen such loyalty in an animal before. One morning, as the girl sat up in bed with Max resting his head on her lap, the hospital arranged a special surprise. The local mayor and police officers came to visit. They brought a shiny medal and placed it gently around Max's neck. The medal read, "Hero Dog, thank you for saving a life." Everyone in the room clapped and smiled. The little girl's eyes sparkled with joy. She hugged Max tightly and whispered, "You're my hero." The hospital also gave the girl a small stuffed toy that looked just like Max, so she would always remember his bravery. The girl's parents were deeply grateful. They hugged the hospital staff, the police, and of course, Max. They said they would never forget how so many people and one brave dog came together to save their daughters. Later that day, the hospital allowed the girl to go outside in a wheelchair, with Max proudly walking beside her. There were people gathered outside, neighbors, reporters, and even children holding signs that said, "Thank you, Max," and "Our hero." The little girl waved shyly, and Max wagged his tail happily. The bond between the girl and Max touched everyone's hearts. People were reminded of how special animals can be. Max had shown not only courage but also deep love and loyalty. He had done something that most humans might not even think possible. The little girl's parents promised that Max would be loved and cared for even more from now on. He was not just a pet, he was family. As the sun began to set that evening, the girl and Max returned to the hospital room, tired but happy. The girl softly told her parents, "Max never gave up on me." Her mother smiled with tears in her eyes and replied, "And we will never forget what he did." The hero's welcome had filled the hospital and the community with hope, joy, and a story they would tell for years to come. Days passed, and the little girl grew stronger every day. The doctors were happy with how well she was healing. Her bruises were fading, her ankle was slowly getting better, and most importantly, she was smiling again. And through it all, Max the German Shepherd never left her side. Finally, the big day came when the doctors said she could go home. The hospital staff, who had all fallen in love with the brave dog and the sweet little girl, gathered at the entrance to say goodbye. Max walked proudly beside her wheelchair, his tail wagging and his eyes bright. He seemed to understand that his mission was complete. Outside the hospital, there was a surprise waiting. The community had come together to give Max and the girl a special send-off. There were colorful balloons, banners that said, "Thank you, Max," and smiling faces everywhere. Children held handmade signs with hearts and paw prints. Even the mayor was there to shake hands and thank the family personally. The girl's parents were overwhelmed with gratitude. They spoke to reporters and told the world how Max had saved their daughter's life. They explained how the dog had stayed with her, helped her up, and somehow guided her all the way to safety. The crowd clapped and cheered as Max was given one more special medal and a big, bone-shaped treat. The little girl looked at Max with tears in her eyes, hugged him tightly, and whispered, "I'll never forget you, Max. You're my hero forever." Story was shared on the news, in newspapers, and all over social media. People from different countries wrote messages of love and respect. Many said the story gave them hope and reminded them that animals have incredible hearts, even scientists. And animal experts were amazed by Max's actions. They explained that while many dogs are loyal and protective, what Max did, guiding an injured child miles to safety, was truly rare and remarkable. The girl and her family returned home, but life was different now. They were closer than ever, grateful for every moment together. Max became a local celebrity, loved by everyone who heard his story. But to the little girl, he was more than a hero. He was her best friend. As time went on, the story of Max and the little girl continued to inspire people. Schools shared the tale with children to teach them about courage, loyalty. It was an ordinary afternoon at the city hospital. Nurses were walking through the hallways, doctors were busy with their patients, and people in the waiting room were quietly sitting, waiting for their turn. Everything seemed normal until something very unusual happened. The big glass doors at the hospital's entrance suddenly slid open. To everyone's surprise, a German shepherd walked inside. But he wasn't alone. Right beside him was a small, wounded girl. She looked no older than 6 or 7. She was limping badly, and her clothes were dirty and torn. Her hair was messy, and there was a small cut on her forehead. She looked tired and scared. For a few seconds, everyone just stared in shock. It's not every day that you see a dog walking into a hospital on its own, but this wasn't just any dog. The German shepherd seemed very calm, as if he knew exactly what he was doing. He kept looking at the little girl and gently nudging her forward with his nose, as if he was telling her, "Keep going. You're almost safe." A few people in the waiting room gasped. Some nurses ran toward the girl. The dog stayed close, watching carefully. He didn't growl or bark, but his body showed that he was ready to protect the girl if he had to. The girl looked so weak she could barely stand. Her lips trembled as she softly whispered, "Help." One of the nurses bent down and gently lifted the little girl into her arms. The German shepherd followed closely, never leaving her side. Even the security guards, who normally wouldn't allow a dog inside the hospital, understood that this was different. Something important was happening. The nurse noticed that the girl's leg was injured. It looked like she had twisted her ankle, and there were scratches on her hands and arms. The medical team quickly brought a stretcher and laid her down carefully. The dog stood right beside the stretcher, his eyes filled with worry. Everyone kept asking the same questions. Who was this little girl? How did she get hurt? And how on earth did this dog know to bring her to the hospital? No one knew the answers yet. It was a mystery that had just begun. One of the doctors told the nurse to take the girl straight to the emergency room. The dog didn't want to leave her side, so the staff allowed him to come along. It was clear that the girl trusted the dog more than anyone else. She kept her hand resting on his fur, her eyes closing slowly as she was wheeled away. Everyone in the hospital was touched by the strange scene they had just witnessed. The bravery and love in the dog's eyes touched their hearts. Somehow, this dog had saved her life. But how and why was still unknown. And so, the story of the mysterious arrival began, leaving everyone wondering what would happen next. The little girl was rushed into the emergency room. Nurses and doctors gathered around her, carefully checking her wounds. She had cuts and bruises on her arms and legs. Her right ankle was swollen and painful. She looked so small and fragile lying on the hospital bed. But what caught everyone's attention the most was the German shepherd sitting right next to her bed. The dog refused to leave her side. He sat quietly but alert, his eyes following every move the doctors made. Even when the nurses tried to guide him out, he didn't budge. It was clear that he wouldn't go anywhere without the girl. The hospital staff, seeing how calm and protective the dog was, decided to let him stay. Some of them smiled softly, touched by the sight of the loyal dog guarding his little friend. The doctors gently cleaned the girl's wounds and gave her water. They checked her vital signs and made sure she was stable. Slowly, she began to wake up a bit more. She looked around the bright room, scared and confused. The first thing her eyes searched for was the dog. When she saw him, she smiled weakly and whispered, "Max ... One of the nurses leaned closer. "Is that his name, Max?" The girl nodded slowly. She was still too weak to say much more. The police were called right away. A missing child report had been issued earlier that day. The girl's description matched. A little girl had vanished from a park several miles away, and her parents had been desperately searching for her. The police gently asked the girl simple questions: her name, where she came from, what had happened. She could only give short answers. But the most important thing she said was, "Max saved me ... The officers and hospital staff began to piece together the story. Somehow, the girl had gotten lost, maybe fallen or injured in a place where no one could find her. And somehow, Max, the German Shepherd, had either stayed with her or gone to get help. But instead of finding a person, Max had done something even more incredible. He had guided her all the way to the hospital. No one could believe it. How could a dog know where to go? How could he lead an injured child safely through busy streets, across neighborhoods, and straight to help? The more they learned, the more amazed they became. The girl kept looking at Max with trust in her eyes. She didn't seem afraid anymore, as long as he was near. The doctors treated her wounds and gave her warm blankets. Max stayed close, lying quietly but always watching. The hospital staff brought him a bowl of water and some food. Even though he must have been tired, he never once took his eyes off the girl. The bond between them was clear to everyone. The little girl was alive because of Max's bravery, loyalty, and love. But how had it all happened? The full story was still waiting to be told. As the little girl rested in her hospital bed, slowly getting stronger, the police continued their investigation. They needed to understand how she had gotten injured and how the German Shepherd Max had managed to bring her safely to the hospital. Soon, the truth began to unfold, and it left everyone shocked. Earlier that morning, the girl and her family had gone to a large public park for a picnic. While her parents were busy setting up lunch, the little girl had wandered off. She was curious and playful, like many children her age. She had Max, her family's German Shepherd, walking alongside her. But something terrible happened. The girl had accidentally fallen into a deep ditch hidden by bushes and tall grass. It was an old, forgotten trench that no one knew was there. The fall injured her leg, leaving her unable to climb out. She was trapped, crying for help, but the place was too far from where her parents were. No one could hear her. Max stayed with her the entire time. He licked her face, kept her warm, and barked loudly, but no one came. Hours passed. The sun began to set. The girl grew weak from hunger, thirst, and fear. That's when Max did something incredible. The smart dog seemed to understand that help was coming. Somehow, he gently encouraged the girl to stand up, even though she was limping badly. With small nudges and careful guidance, Max led the girl out of the hidden area. He stayed by her side every step of the way, helping her avoid obstacles and making sure she didn't fall. The most amazing part was what came next. The girl and Max had to cross 3 miles to reach the hospital. It meant walking through unfamiliar streets, across busy intersections, and past strangers. Yet Max never left her. He led her directly to the hospital entrance as if he knew that was where help could be found. The doctors and police were stunned. Most people wouldn't believe a dog could think and act like that. But here was the living proof Max, the German Shepherd, had saved the little girl's life. The police also managed to contact the girl's parents, who were still frantically searching for their child. When they arrived at the hospital and saw their daughter safe and Max by her side, they broke down in tears. They hugged both the girl and the brave dog, thanking him over and over. The hospital staff, who had witnessed the whole scene, were deeply touched. Some nurses had tears in their eyes. The story spread through the hospital like wildfire. Everyone agreed on one thing: Max wasn't just a pet, he was a hero. The little girl, now resting with her family, kept holding on to Max's fur, whispering softly, "Good boy, Max. Thank you." The mystery had been solved. The truth had come out. But this was more than just a rescue. It was a story of love, loyalty, and the unbreakable bond between a dog and a child.